Listen carefully, because this is not random. This is not just another message you casually came across while scrolling, distracted, or passing time. No, something about this moment feels different, doesn't it? Something in your spirit paused. Something inside you said, "Wait, don't skip this." And now here you are. That feeling, that pull, that quiet but undeniable nudge, that is not coincidence. That is alignment. Because there are moments in life when everything slows down, not around you, but within you. Moments where time seems to whisper instead of shout. And in those moments, heaven leans in closer than ever before. This is one of those moments. You were guided here. Not by accident. Not by algorithm. Not by chance. But by something higher, something that saw what you've been going through in silence. You see, lately things haven't felt quite right, have they? There's been a strange tension in the air. Conversations that feel off. Energy shifts you can't explain. Maybe people around you have been acting differently, but no one is saying anything directly. Maybe you've been overthinking, trying to brush it off, telling yourself it's probably nothing. But deep down you know it's not nothing. There's been a quiet awareness growing inside you. A sense that something is happening beneath the surface. Something hidden. Something you weren't meant to notice until now. And here's the truth that may shake you. You didn't find this message. This message found you. Because there is something unfolding in your life. Something connected to your family, your past, your bloodline, that is beginning to rise into the light. And before it fully reveals itself, heaven needed your attention. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when it's convenient. Now. Because timing is everything in the spiritual realm. And when a message like this reaches you at the exact moment your spirit is most sensitive, it's not entertainment. It's intervention. There are things you sensed but couldn't prove. Things you felt but couldn't explain. Moments where your intuition whispered, "Pay attention," but you silenced it just to keep the peace. But what if that voice was right all along? What if the discomfort you've been feeling isn't anxiety, but awareness? What if the distance you've noticed isn't coincidence, but separation? What if the silence around you is hiding something that was never meant to stay buried? This is where everything begins to shift. Because the moment you start asking the right questions, the truth starts moving toward you. And that's exactly what's happening right now. You are stepping into a moment of divine interruption. A moment where your normal routine is being disrupted for a reason. A moment where distractions are being pushed aside so clarity can enter. And here's what you need to understand. Not everyone receives warnings like this. Not everyone is chosen to see what's hidden. Not everyone is trusted with revelation. But you were. Which means there is something about you. Something within you. Something about your spirit that made you eligible to receive this message. Maybe it's your sensitivity. Maybe it's your intuition. Maybe it's the fact that, despite everything you've been through, you still seek truth. But whatever it is, heaven recognized it. And now, heaven is responding. Because something is coming to the surface. Something your family never wanted you to know. Something that has been buried in silence, protected by time, hidden behind smiles, disguised as normal. But secrets, no matter how deep they are buried, always rise when the time is right. And that time is now. So don't ignore this feeling. Don't brush this off. Because this is the beginning of something much bigger than you realize. Something is about to be revealed. And the fact that you're here right now hearing this means you're already part of it. Stay with me, because what comes next will explain why 3 angels have been sent and what they are urgently trying to show you. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you feel this message was meant for you. Blessing code 1414 is now activating around your life. Listen closely now, because what is about to be revealed is not symbolic, not metaphorical, and not something to take lightly. This is the moment where the unseen begins to take shape, where what has been operating quietly in the spiritual realm steps forward with purpose. You may not see them with your physical eyes, but your spirit already senses their presence. That unexplainable shift you've been feeling, that stillness mixed with urgency, that quiet pressure in your chest, it is not empty. It is occupied. Because 3 angels have been assigned, and their arrival is not random. It is strategic. It is intentional. And most importantly, it is about you. These are not ordinary messengers. These are not passive observers. These are divine agents, each carrying a specific assignment tied directly to your life, your family, and the secret that is now beginning to surface. They were not sent to everyone. They were sent to you because something about your spirit made you receptive, aware, and ready. And now, they stand at the edge of your awareness, waiting for you to fully awaken to what they have come to reveal. The first angel arrives with a presence that feels like protection wrapped in authority. This is the angel of protection, and you have felt this one before, even if you didn't recognize it at the time. Every moment where something should have gone wrong but didn't, every situation where you narrowly avoided harm, conflict, or loss, every time you felt shielded without understanding why, that was not luck. That was intervention. This angel has been standing guard over your life longer than you realize, quietly blocking what was meant to disrupt you, silently redirecting what was meant to confuse you. And now, this angel is stepping forward more visibly in your spirit, because what is coming requires heightened protection. Not fear, but awareness. Not panic, but positioning. You are being covered because something hidden is beginning to move, and heaven will not allow you to face it unguarded. The second angel carries a very different energy. This one does not come to comfort, it comes to reveal. This is the angel of revelation, and its presence is the reason you can no longer ignore what you feel. This is the angel that stirs your intuition, that disrupts your denial, that whispers truth when everything around you tries to maintain illusion. This is the voice that has been nudging you, saying, "Look closer, something isn't right." You tried to silence it. You tried to rationalize it. You told yourself you were overthinking. But that voice persisted, didn't it? That was not anxiety. That was activation. Because this angel has been assigned to pull back the curtain on what has been hidden within your family, within your environment, within conversations you were never meant to hear, but were always meant to understand. And now, that revelation is intensifying. You are beginning to see patterns. You are beginning to notice inconsistencies. You are beginning to question things you once accepted without hesitation. That is not confusion. That is clarity breaking through. And then there is the third angel. This one carries the heaviest presence of all, not because it brings destruction, but because it brings transformation. This is the angel of restoration, and its assignment is not just to show you what's wrong, but to rebuild what has been damaged, to heal what has been affected, and to restore what was taken, hidden, or delayed in your life. This angel does not arrive until truth is acknowledged. It does not move until you are willing to release illusion. But once it begins its work, everything changes. This is the angel that will help you reclaim your peace, your clarity, your direction. This is the angel that ensures you do not remain stuck in confusion once the truth is revealed. Because heaven does not expose just to hurt, it exposes to heal. And here is what you must understand: in this moment, these 3 angels are not working separately. They are moving together, in alignment, round you right now. Protection is guarding you. Revelation is awakening you. Restoration is preparing for you. This is a coordinated movement in the spiritual realm, and you are at the center of it. That is why things feel intense. That is why your awareness is increasing. That is why your environment feels different. Because something is being uncovered, and you are being prepared to handle it. Do not ignore what you feel right now. Do not dismiss the weight of this moment. Because the arrival of these three angels marks the beginning of a process that cannot be reversed. Once truth begins to surface, it does not return to silence. Once awareness awakens, it does not go back to sleep. You are stepping into a phase where what hath been hidden will be made known, not all at once but in layers. And each layer will require you to stay grounded, to stay observant, to stay aligned with what your spirit is telling you. You are not alone in this. You are not unprotected. You are not walking into confusion blindly. You are being guided, watched, and prepared in real time. And the deeper you lean into this awareness, the clearer everything will become. Because the angels are not just near you, they are working for you. And what they are about to reveal next is something your family never expected you to discover. Type I see clearly in the comments if you are ready to receive what is being revealed. Blessing code 2222 is now surrounding your life. There is something you need to understand right now, and it may not be easy to hear, but your spirit has already been preparing you for this moment. The tension you've been feeling, the uneasiness you couldn't explain, the quiet sense that something was off within your family, it was never imagined. It was never just in your head. It was recognition. Recognition of something buried deep within your bloodline. Something that has been carried silently across generations. Something that was never meant to reach your awareness. But now, it has. Because every family carries stories that are told and stories that are hidden. And the hidden ones are always the most powerful. There are truths that were never spoken out loud, decisions that were never fully explained, actions that were quietly justified, and patterns that were passed down without question. These things did not disappear. They were not erased. They were absorbed into the fabric of your family's identity, becoming part of the environment you grew up in, part of the behaviors you witnessed, part of the energy you learned to navigate. And over time, they became normal even when they were not. But here is where everything begins to shift. You were never meant to stay unaware. You were never meant to inherit confusion without clarity. You were never meant to carry something that was never yours to begin with. That is why the angel of revelation has stepped forward so strongly in your life right now. Because something hidden is rising. Not randomly, not violently, but deliberately, carefully, in a way that allows you to see without being overwhelmed, to understand without being destroyed. This is not exposure for the sake of chaos. This is exposure for the sake of freedom. There is a secret within your bloodline that has shaped more than you realize. It has influenced relationships. It has affected trust. It has created patterns of silence, tension, or even subtle division that no one ever fully addressed. And perhaps the most unsettling part is this: some people in your family are aware of it. Not everyone, but some. They may not speak about it openly. They may not even acknowledge it directly, but they have adapted to it. They have learned how to navigate around it, how to maintain appearances, how to protect the illusion of normalcy. And in doing so, they have unknowingly participated in keeping it hidden. But you are different. You didn't adapt to it the same way. You questioned things. You noticed inconsistencies. You felt discomfort where others felt acceptance. You sense something beneath the surface even when you couldn't name it. That is not rebellion. That is awareness. And that awareness is exactly why this revelation is reaching you now. Because you are the one who can see it clearly. You are the one who can break through the silence. You are the one who can stop the cycle from continuing unnoticed. But before anything can change, something must be understood. This secret is not always dramatic in the way you might expect. It may not be a single event or a single moment. It may be a pattern, a way of thinking, of repeated behavior that has been normalized over time. It may be something subtle, like emotional manipulation, unspoken resentment, hidden competition, or quiet control. Things that don't always show themselves openly, but can be felt deeply by those who are sensitive enough to notice. And you have been noticing, even when you tried to ignore it, even when you told yourself you were overthinking, even when you chose silence just to avoid conflict. But silence does not erase truth. It only delays its arrival. And now that delay is ending, because what has been hidden cannot remain hidden when awareness is activated. You may begin to see things differently now. Conversations that once seemed normal may start to feel layered. Interactions that once felt simple may begin to reveal deeper meaning. You may notice patterns repeating in ways you hadn't recognized before. This is not confusion. This is clarity beginning to form. And with that clarity comes a choice. You can continue to ignore what you see, to return to comfort, to maintain the illusion for the sake of peace. Or you can accept what is being revealed, even if it challenges what you once believed, even if it creates temporary discomfort, even if it requires you to stand apart from what feels familiar. Because truth does not always feel comfortable when it first appears, but it is always necessary. And here is the most important part of all: you are not being shown this to carry it alone. You are being shown this because something is about to change. Something is about to be exposed in a way that will make everything make sense. And when that moment comes, you will not be confused. You will not be shocked. You will understand. Because you were prepared. Because you were aware. Because you were chosen to see what others refused to acknowledge. The secret within your bloodline is not rising to destroy you. It is rising so it can no longer control you. And once it is fully revealed, everything begins to shift. Type "I accept the truth" in the comments if you are ready to see clearly. Blessing code 3333 is now activating within your spirit. As this truth begins to unfold, understand this: every time light reaches one soul, it has the power to ignite 1,000 more. What you are receiving right now is not just a message. It is a divine seed being planted, and seeds must be sown for harvest to multiply. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you," not as a suggestion, but as a living command breathing over your life in this very moment. I feel led to say this clearly. When you choose to support this mission through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not giving to a channel. You are releasing oil into a lamp that guides lost souls back to truth. This is your moment to act, not later, not when it feels convenient, but now, while your spirit is stirred. What you release today becomes a river of revelation flowing into someone else's darkness. Heaven is watching your response. Step forward in obedience and sow your seed now. There is a reason your inner world has not felt the same lately. There is a reason your emotions have been shifting without clear explanation, your thoughts moving in patterns you don't fully recognize, your energy rising and falling in ways that seem disconnected from your external reality. What you have been experiencing is not random, and it is not something to dismiss or explain away. It is a shift, a real, measurable, spiritual shift that has been building quietly within you, preparing you for this exact moment. You may have noticed it in subtle ways at first. A sudden discomfort in spaces that once felt normal. A quiet resistance toward conversations you used to engage in easily. A sense of distance from certain people, even when nothing obvious has changed. These moments may have confused you, caused you to question yourself, even made you wonder if you were overreacting or becoming too sensitive. But what you were feeling was not instability. It was alignment beginning to take hold. Because when your awareness begins to rise, your tolerance for what is misaligned begins to fall. You are no longer able to sit comfortably in environments that contradict what your spirit is starting to understand. You are no longer able to ignore the small inconsistencies, the subtle tensions, the quiet signals that something beneath the surface is not as it appears. And this is where the shift becomes undeniable. Not because something dramatic has happened externally, but because something significant has changed internally. Your perception is evolving. You are beginning to see beyond what is said, beyond what is shown, beyond what is expected. You are starting to read energy instead of just words. You are sensing intention instead of just action. And while this may feel overwhelming at times, it is actually a sign that you are stepping into a higher level of awareness, one that cannot be reversed once it has been activated. This is why things feel different. This is why your peace has become more selective. This is why your reactions have changed. You are no longer responding from habit. You are responding from awareness. And awareness always brings change. There may have been moments recently where you felt a sudden need to withdraw, to step back, to observe rather than participate. You may have felt drawn to silence, not out of fear, but out of instinct. This was not avoidance. This was preparation. Because when something hidden is about to be revealed, your spirit instinctively begins to create space. Space to process, space to understand, space to respond without confusion. At the same time, you may have felt an increase in internal pressure, thoughts becoming louder, questions becoming more persistent, a sense that something needs your attention, even if you cannot fully identify what it is. This is the angel of revelation, continuing its work, bringing things to the surface gradually, allowing you to adjust, to adapt, to prepare for what is coming next. And here is the part that requires your full attention. This shift is not temporary. This is not a phase you will move through and return from. This is a transition into a new level of perception that will permanently change how you see your environment, your relationships, and yourself. Once clarity begins, it does not reverse. Once awareness awakens, it does not sleep again. And that is why this moment feels so intense. Because you are not just observing change. You are becoming part of it. You may also begin to notice physical sensations that seem to accompany this shift. A heaviness in certain environments, a lightness in others, a sense of calm that appears unexpectedly, even in situations that should feel stressful. These are not coincidences. These are indicators that your internal state is aligning with something greater than your external circumstances. Your spirit is learning to guide you more directly. Your intuition is becoming sharper, more precise, more difficult to ignore. And this is happening because you are being prepared to navigate what is about to be revealed without being overwhelmed by it. Because when the truth begins to surface, it can feel disruptive. It can challenge your understanding. It can shift your perspective on people, on situations, on things you once accepted as normal. But if you are grounded in awareness, if you are anchored in clarity, you will not be shaken by what you discover. You will understand it. You will process it. And most importantly, You will respond to it with intention rather than reaction. This is the purpose of the shift. Not to confuse you, not to isolate you, but to prepare you, to strengthen your perception so that when the next layer is revealed, you are not caught off guard. You are ready, because something is approaching the surface, something connected to what you have already begun to sense. And as it rises, your awareness will be the difference between confusion and clarity, between reaction and control, between being affected by it and understanding it fully. This shift is your preparation. This shift is your protection. This shift is your positioning. And the more you trust it, the clearer everything will become. Type "I trust my awareness" in the comments if you feel this shift within you. Blessing code 4444 is now aligning your spirit with truth. Now listen carefully, because this is where the message becomes more precise, more personal, and more revealing than anything you have heard so far. What you are sensing is not just a shift within you, it is a shift around you. And as your awareness rises, it begins to illuminate something that has been hidden in plain sight all along. Something that does not come from strangers, not from distant forces, but from places that feel close, familiar, and trusted. This is the part many try to ignore, because it is uncomfortable, because it challenges what you believed, because it forces you to look again at people you never questioned before. But the truth does not avoid discomfort. The truth moves through it. There are individuals within your environment, within your circle, within your family, whose alignment with you is not what it appears to be. This does not always mean direct harm, open conflict, or obvious betrayal. In fact, the most difficult truths are the ones that are subtle, the ones that do not announce themselves loudly, but instead exist quietly, influencing situations, shaping dynamics, and creating undercurrents you feel but cannot immediately explain. You may have noticed it already. A tone that shifts when certain topics arise. A reaction that feels slightly off, even when the words sound supportive. Moments where something feels withheld, even in the presence of conversation. These are not random impressions. These are signals. Because not everyone who is present in your life is aligned with your growth. And not everyone who appears supportive is genuinely invested in your elevation. This does not mean you are surrounded by enemies. It means you are surrounded by complexity, by individuals who carry their own perspectives, insecurities, expectations, and intentions, some of which may not align with the direction you are now moving toward. And as your awareness increases, these differences become more visible. This is where the discomfort begins, because you are no longer able to ignore what you feel. You are no longer able to dismiss the small inconsistencies. You are no longer able to pretend that everything is exactly as it seems. And this is not a punishment. This is clarity. There may be someone, perhaps more than one person, whose presence has started to feel different to you. Not drastically, not in a way that creates immediate distance, but subtly, gradually. A shift in energy that you cannot fully explain, but cannot ignore either. You may have questioned yourself, wondering if you are misinterpreting things, if you are becoming overly cautious, if you are creating meaning where there is none. But the truth is, your perception is sharpening. And with that sharpening comes the ability to detect what was previously overlooked. This is where the angel of revelation continues its work. Not by forcing conclusions, not by creating fear, but by allowing you to see clearly what has always been there. Because sometimes, betrayal does not appear as action. It appears as intention, as misalignment, as a quiet resistance to your growth, as an unspoken discomfort with the direction you are moving toward. And this is where you must remain grounded. Because awareness does not require reaction. Clarity does not demand confrontation. Understanding does not mean immediate separation. But it requires is observation, stillness, discernment. You are not being asked to act impulsively. You are being asked to see clearly, to recognize patterns without rushing to conclusions, to understand dynamics without forcing outcomes. Because the truth is still unfolding, and not everything needs to be addressed at once, but everything needs to be acknowledged. There is a difference between what people say and what they carry, and you are beginning to sense that difference more deeply than before. This is why your responses are changing. This is why you feel less inclined to share certain thoughts, less willing to engage in certain conversations, less comfortable in certain interaction. This is not withdrawal. This is awareness creating boundaries. Boundaries that are not yet spoken, but already felt. And this is necessary, because as the truth continues to surface, you will need space. Space to process. Space to understand. Space to decide how you move forward without confusion. Because what is being revealed is not meant to isolate you. It is meant to align you, to bring you into a clearer understanding of your environment, your relationships, and your position within them. And as this clarity strengthens, the dynamics around you will begin to shift. Some people may respond differently to your energy. Some interactions may change without explanation. Some connections may feel less natural than they once did. This is not loss. This is adjustment. Because as you evolve, your environment responds. And not everything can remain the same. But here is what you must hold on to in this moment. You are not being shown this to become suspicious of everyone. You are being shown this to become aware of what aligns and what does not. To understand where your energy is supported and where it is not. To recognize where your growth is encouraged and where it is quietly resisted. Because once you see clearly, you can choose wisely. And the choices you make from this point forward will be different. Not because you are reacting to others, but because you are responding to truth. And as this process continues, what is hidden will become more visible. Not all at once, but enough for you to understand exactly what you need to understand. At the right time, in the right way. Because clarity is unfolding, and you are ready for it. Type "I choose discernment" in the comments if you are ready to see beyond appearances. Blessing code 5555 is now strengthening your awareness. There comes a moment in every bloodline where something shifts, where one person begins to see what others ignored, question what others accepted, and feel what others learned to suppress. That moment is not random. It is not accidental. It is intentional. And that moment is happening through you. Because what you are beginning to recognize is not just about individual behavior or isolated experiences. It is something deeper. Something that has been repeating, quietly, consistently, across time. A pattern that has moved through your family like an invisible thread, connecting actions, decisions, reactions, and outcomes in ways that were never fully understood, but always felt. You may not have had the language for it before, but you have seen it. You have sensed it. You have lived within it. Patterns of miscommunication that never truly resolve. Cycles of tension that repeat without clear cause. Moments where the same types of misunderstandings arise again and again, even with different people, different circumstances, different times. These are not coincidences. These are patterns. And patterns do not exist without origin. They are formed, reinforced, and carried forward, sometimes consciously but often unconsciously. Passed down not through direct instruction, but through observation, environment, and repetition. They become normalized, embedded into the way people interact, respond, and relate to one another. And over time, they begin to feel permanent, unchangeable, just the way things are. But they are not permanent, and they are not unchangeable. They continue only as long as they remain unrecognized. This is where your role becomes clear. You are the one who has begun to recognize them. You are the one who has felt the discomfort of repetition. You are the one who has questioned why certain things keep happening the same way, even when circumstances change. And because of that, you are the one positioned to interrupt the cycle. This is not a small role. This is not an easy role. Because breaking a pattern requires more than awareness. It requires willingness. Willingness to see clearly, even when it challenges what is familiar. Willingness to respond differently, even when old responses feel easier. Willingness to step outside of what has been normalized, even when it creates temporary discomfort. And this is where many choose to remain within the pattern. Not because they cannot see it, but because breaking it requires change. Real change. The kind that shifts dynamics. The kind that alters expectations. The kind that may not be immediately understood or accepted by others. But you are not being asked to maintain what has always been. You are being positioned to transform it. Because the pattern you are seeing is not just affecting the past. It is shaping the present. And if left unaddressed, it will continue into the future. But not if it stops with you. This is what makes your awareness so significant. You are not just observing a pattern. You are standing at the point where it can end. And endings do not always look dramatic. They do not always involve confrontation or declaration. Sometimes, they begin with quiet decisions. Small shifts in response. Moments where you choose awareness over reaction. Clarity over assumption. Stillness over repetition. These are the moments where patterns begin to weaken. Because patterns rely on consistency to survive. They continue when responses remain the same. They persist when behaviors are repeated without question. But the moment something changes even slightly, the pattern begins to lose its hold. This is where your power lies. Not in forcing change around you, but in choosing change within you. Because when your responses change, the dynamic changes. When your awareness guides your actions, the pattern cannot continue in the same way. And over time, what once felt inevitable begins to dissolve. This is not immediate. This is not instant. But it is real. And it is already beginning. You may have noticed it in small ways. Moments where you respond differently than you would have before. Situations where you choose observation instead of reaction. Conversations where you remain grounded instead of being pulled into familiar tension. These are not minor shifts. These are indicators that the pattern is being interrupted, that something within you is no longer operating on autopilot, that awareness is guiding your actions in real time. And this is exactly what is required, because breaking a generational pattern does not happen through force. It happens through consistency and awareness, through repeated alignment with clarity instead of habit, through choosing differently, even when it feels unfamiliar. And as this continues, the pattern begins to lose its influence, not just for you, but for everything connected to you. Because once a pattern is broken at one point, it cannot continue in the same way. Its structure changes. Its repetition weakens. Its impact diminishes. And this is what is happening now. You are not just witnessing something hidden. You are participating in something transformative. You are not just becoming aware of a pattern. You are becoming the point where it ends. And as this realization deepens, everything around you will begin to adjust. Not immediately, not all at once, but gradually, clearly, inevitably, because what continues through generations can also end through one decision, one awareness, one person willing to see clearly and respond differently. And that person is you. Type "the cycle ends with me" in the comments if you are ready to break the pattern. Blessing code 6666 is now activating transformation within your bloodline. There is something you must come to terms with now, something your spirit has already sensed but your mind has hesitated to fully accept. Not everything that has been happening around you has been visible. Not every influence, not every intention, not every conversation had been brought into the open. And yet that does not mean they have not been taking place. Because while you have been navigating your life from what you can see, there have been layers moving beneath the surface. Quiet exchanges, subtle observations, moments where your name has entered spaces you were never physically present in. This is not meant to create fear within you. It is meant to bring clarity to what your intuition has already been trying to show you. There are conversations that have occurred without your awareness. Not necessarily loud, not necessarily dramatic, but impactful. Words spoken in passing. Opinions formed without your presence. Interpretations created from partial understanding. These are the kinds of exchanges that shape perception without your involvement. And over time, they begin to influence how people see you, how they respond to you, how they position themselves around you. This is what you have been feeling. Not direct confrontation, but indirect influence. Not open conflict, but subtle shifts in behavior. This is why certain interactions have started to feel different. Because what people carry into a moment with you is not always formed in that moment. It is shaped beforehand. Through thoughts, through assumptions, through conversations you were never part of. And as your awareness increases, you begin to sense this more clearly. You begin to recognize when something feels preformed, when a response seems influenced by something beyond what is being said directly to you. This is not overthinking. This is perception becoming more precise. But there is another layer to this that goes deeper than physical conversations. There is a form of observation that is not spoken, not shared, but still present. People watching, noticing, interpreting, drawing conclusions based on fragments rather than full understanding. You may have felt this in moments where attention seems present but unspoken, where you sense that more is being noticed than is being expressed, where you feel observed in ways that are difficult to explain, but impossible to ignore. This is not something external or distant. It exists within your environment, within familiar spaces, within people who are close enough to observe, but not always aligned enough to understand. And this is where the concept of spiritual surveillance becomes clear, not in a way that suggests intrusion or control, but in a way that reflects awareness without transparency. You are being seen, but not always understood. You are being observed, but not always accurately interpreted. And this creates a dynamic where perception begins to diverge from reality, where assumptions begin to replace truth, where silence begins to carry meaning that was never intended. This is what the angel of revelation is bringing into your awareness now. Not to create distance, but to create understanding. Because once you recognize that not everything around you is based on direct experience, you begin to detach from the need to control how you are perceived. You begin to understand that not every reaction you receive is a response to who you are. Some are responses to what others believe, assume, or have been influenced to think. And this realization is powerful, because it frees you from something that has been affecting you more than you realized. The need to explain, the need to correct, the need to align everyone's understanding with your reality. But you do not need to do that, because truth does not require constant defense, and clarity does not require constant explanation. What is real will reveal itself over time, and what is based on assumption will eventually lose its stability. But until that happens, you are being guided to move differently, to become more intentional with what you share, more selective with what you engage in, more observant of how dynamics unfold around you, not out of fear, but out of awareness. Because when you understand that there are layers operating beyond what is visible, you begin to navigate with greater precision. You begin to speak with intention instead of reaction. You begin to observe patterns instead of getting pulled into them. You begin to recognize when something is not aligned without needing immediate confirmation. This is not isolation. This is clarity. And clarity brings strength. Because once you see the full landscape, you are no longer limited to reacting to what appears on the surface. You understand the deeper movement, the underlying currents, the unspoken influences, and this positions you differently. It allows you to remain steady even when things around you feel uncertain. It allows you to stay grounded even when perception around you shifts. It allows you to move with awareness instead of assumption. Because now you know. Not everything is said out loud. Not everything is visible. But everything leaves a pattern. And you are learning how to read it. This is your advantage. This is your preparation. Because as the next layer of truth begins to surface, you will not be caught off guard. You will recognize it. You will understand it. And you will know exactly how to respond. Type ISE beyond the surface in the comments if you are ready to move with awareness. Blessing code 7777 is now activating deeper discernment within you. This is the moment where everything you have felt, everything you have sensed, everything that has been quietly building within your awareness begins to come into focus. But here is the truth that must be faced now. Seeing is not the same as accepting. And awareness is not the same as action. Because there comes a point where what hath been revealed to you demands a response. Not from fear, not from pressure, but from discernment. And discernment is being tested right now. Not in a loud or obvious way. Not through something that forces you to react immediately, but through subtle choices, quiet decisions. Moments where you either trust what you are sensing or you dismiss it to maintain comfort. This is where many people lose clarity, not because they never saw the truth, but because they chose not to follow it. Because following it would require change. Because following it would mean stepping out of familiar patterns. Because following it would mean acknowledging something that cannot be ignored once it is fully accepted. And that is where you stand right now. At a point where you can either lean into what is being revealed or retreat back into what feels easier. You may feel the pull in both directions. One side urging you to trust your awareness, to observe more closely, to listen to that internal voice that has been guiding you. The other side encouraging you to dismiss it, to tell yourself that everything is fine, to maintain the surface-level harmony that avoids discomfort. This is the test, not of your strength, but of your clarity. Because clarity requires courage. It requires the willingness to see what is there, even when it challenges your expectations. It requires the ability to sit with truth, even when it feels inconvenient. And it requires the discipline to respond intentionally instead of reacting emotionally. You are not being asked to confront everything at once. You are not being asked to change everything immediately. You are being asked to recognize, to acknowledge, to stay present with what is being shown to you without turning away. Because every time you ignore your awareness, you weaken your discernment. And every time you trust it, you strengthen it. This is how discernment develops. Not through external validation, but through internal alignment. You may have already experienced moments where you sensed something clearly, but chose to overlook it. Moments where your intuition spoke, but you silenced it in favor of maintaining peace. Moments where you knew something was not aligned, but you continued forward as if nothing had changed. Those moments were not failures. They were lessons. They were part of the process of learning how to trust what you feel without needing immediate confirmation. And now, those lessons are becoming more relevant than ever. Because what is being revealed next will require you to be fully present, fully aware, fully aligned with your discernment. You will begin to notice more, not because something new is being created, but because your perception is becoming sharper. Things that once felt unclear will start to feel defined. Situations that once felt neutral will begin to reveal their underlying nature. People's words and actions will begin to align, or misalign, in ways that become more visible to you. And in those moments, you will be faced with a choice: to trust what you see, or to question yourself, to act from awareness, or to return to assumption. And this choice will not always be comfortable, because discernment does not always lead to easy conclusions. Sometimes it leads to realizations that require patience, that require restraint, that require you to hold understanding without immediately acting on it. And this is where discipline becomes important, because not every truth needs to be spoken immediately. Not every realization needs to be acted on instantly. Some truths need to settle, to be observed over time, to be understood fully before any response is made. This is what allows discernment to remain clear instead of reactive. Because when awareness is paired with patience, it becomes powerful. But when awareness is rushed into action without understanding, it becomes unstable. You are being guided toward stability, toward clarity that is grounded, not impulsive, toward perception that is steady, not reactive. And this is what will prepare you for what comes next, because what is about to be revealed will not be confusing. It will be clear, but only if you remain aligned with your discernment, only if you trust what you have been sensing, only if you stay present with what is unfolding instead of turning away from it. This is not about choosing sides. This is not about creating conflict. This is about choosing awareness over avoidance. Because once you see clearly, you cannot return to not seeing. And the more you trust your perception, the more precise it becomes, until there is no doubt left, only understanding. And that understanding will guide you forward without confusion. Type "I trust my discernment" in the comments if you are ready to stand in clarity. Blessing code 8888 is now strengthening your spiritual vision. As your discernment sharpens and your spirit begins to see what others cannot. Understand this: every moment of clarity you receive is a light that can reach someone still lost in confusion. The word declares that when you sow into good ground, your harvest is multiplied beyond what your eyes can see. And right now, this message is that ground. I feel led to speak directly to you. This is your moment to act, not as a viewer, but as a vessel. When you release your support through the PayPal link in the description with a QR code on your screen, you are not giving money. You are releasing fire into a mission that brings truth to those still walking in darkness. This is not casual. This is prophetic alignment. What you sow now becomes a river that carries revelation into lives that are waiting for this exact message. Do not delay what your spirit is prompting you to do. Step forward and sow your seed now. There comes a point in every spiritual awakening where clarity is no longer enough, where seeing the truth is no longer the final step. Because once you see clearly, something else is required of you. Something deeper, something more difficult, something that many try to avoid even after everything has been revealed. That step is separation. Not forced separation, not dramatic separation, but divine separation. The kind that does not begin with distance on the outside, but with alignment on the inside. Because what you are beginning to understand now is that not everything you have been connected to is meant to move forward with you. Not every relationship, not every environment, not every pattern, not every version of yourself is aligned with where you are being positioned to go next. And this realization is where the true test begins. Because letting go is rarely about not caring. It is about choosing alignment over attachment. You may already feel this happening within you. A quiet resistance toward certain interactions. A subtle detachment from conversations that once felt natural. A growing awareness that some connections no longer feel the same, not because something dramatic has happened, but because something within you has changed. This is not rejection. This is recalibration. Because as your awareness has increased, your alignment has shifted. And when alignment shifts, everything connected to you begins to adjust. But not everything adjusts in the same way. Some things move with you. Some things remain where they were. And some things must be released. This is the part many struggle with. Because release does not always come with closure. It does not always come with explanation. It does not always come with mutual understanding. Sometimes it comes quietly, gradually, through small decisions, through subtle changes in how you engage, how you respond, how you allow your energy to be used. You may find yourself speaking less in certain spaces, sharing less with certain people, participating less in dynamics that no longer feel aligned. This is not withdrawal. This is intentional separation. And it does not need to be announced. It does not need to be justified. Because what is happening is internal before it becomes external. You are learning to choose where your energy goes. And more importantly, where it does not go. Because energy is not unlimited. And where you place it determines what grows in your life. This is why separation becomes necessary. Not to create distance for the sake of distance, but to create space for alignment. To remove what interferes with clarity. To step away from what distorts your perception. To disengage from what keeps pulling you back into patterns you have already outgrown. This may feel uncomfortable at first, because familiarity has a way of creating attachment, even when it is no longer beneficial. You may feel moments of doubt, moments where you question whether you are making the right choice, moments where you consider returning to what feels easier instead of continuing forward into what feels uncertain. But this is where your discernment must remain strong, because not everything that feels familiar is aligned, and not everything that feels difficult is wrong. Sometimes, difficulty is simply the process of realignment, of stepping into a new way of being that has not yet become comfortable. And this is where your strength is required, not in forcing change, but in maintaining clarity, and staying aligned with what you know is true, even when it challenges what you are used to. Because once you begin to let go of what no longer aligns, something else begins to happen. Space opens. Not empty space, but intentional space. Space for clarity to deepen. Space for new alignment to form. Space for connections that reflect your current awareness instead of your past patterns. This is the purpose of separation. Not loss, not isolation, but preparation. Preparation for what comes next. Because what is being removed is not meant to leave you without. It is meant to create room for something more aligned, more stable, more consistent with the direction you are moving toward. And as this process continues, you will begin to feel lighter, more grounded, more clear. Not because everything around you has changed instantly, but because your relationship to it has changed. You are no longer holding on to what does not serve you. You are no longer trying to maintain what is no longer aligned. You are allowing things to be what they are without forcing them to remain what they were. And this is where real transformation begins. Because letting go is not about losing something valuable. It is about releasing what is no longer necessary, so that what is meant for you can fully arrive. And as you continue forward, the separation will become clearer, not through force, but through understanding. Because what is aligned will remain, and what is not will naturally fall away. Type "I release what no longer serves me" in the comments if you are ready to step into alignment. Blessing code 9999 is now clearing your path forward. You have felt it building. Not all at once, not in a way that demands immediate attention, but gradually, like something forming just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. That feeling has not been misplaced. It has not been your imagination trying to create meaning where there is none. It has been preparation. Because what is about to happen next is not subtle. It is not hidden. It is revelation. There is something that has been kept beneath layers of silence, assumption, and partial understanding. Something that has existed quietly within your environment, influencing dynamics without ever fully revealing itself. And now, that concealment is weakening. Not because someone has chosen to reveal it, but because it can no longer remain hidden under the weight of awareness that is now surrounding it. This is how truth operates. It does not always come forward when people are ready. It comes forward when it can no longer be contained. You are approaching that moment now. You may already notice small signs of this shift. Moments where information surfaces unexpectedly. Conversations that reveal more than intended. Situations where something is said, done, or expressed that feels like a fragment of a larger truth. These are not isolated events. They are indicators. Signals that what hath been concealed is beginning to lose its structure. And as this continues, the fragments will begin to connect. What once felt like separate, unrelated experiences will begin to form a pattern. What once seemed unclear will begin to make sense. What once required interpretation will become direct. This is the nature of revelation. It does not overwhelm you all at once. It unfolds in layers, each one building upon the last, until the full picture becomes impossible to ignore. But here is where your role becomes critical. Because when truth begins to reveal itself, your response determines how you experience it. If you are grounded, if you are aligned, if you are steady in your awareness, you will receive it with clarity. If you are reactive, if you are unprepared, if you are resisting what is being shown, it may feel disruptive. The truth itself does not create instability. Resistance to it does. And this is why everything you have been experiencing up to this point has been preparation. You have been guided to observe, to discern, to separate, to align, so that when this moment arrives, you are not overwhelmed by what you see. You are ready for it. Because what is about to be exposed is not random. It is connected to everything you have already sensed. Everything you have already questioned. Everything you have already begun to understand. This is the confirmation phase. A moment where internal awareness meets external evidence, where what you felt becomes visible, where what you suspected becomes clear. And when that happens, there will be no confusion left, only understanding. You may find that this revelation comes in a form you did not expect. It may not be a direct statement or a clear admission. It may come through a series of moments, a pattern of behavior that becomes undeniable, a sequence of interactions that reveals consistency, a situation where something hidden becomes visible through circumstance rather than intention. This is why patience is important, because the truth does not always appear in the way you anticipate, but when it does appear, it is unmistakable, and once it is seen, it cannot be unseen. This is where many people feel the urge to react immediately, to confront, to question, to seek answers right away. But this is not the moment for reaction. This is the moment for understanding, because clarity is strongest when it is observed fully before it is acted upon. You are not being guided to rush into action. You are being guided to remain steady as the truth completes its emergence. Because once the full picture is visible, your response will not come from uncertainty. It will come from clarity. And clarity allows for precision. It allows you to respond in a way that is aligned, measured, and intentional, not driven by emotion, not influenced by confusion, but grounded in truth. This is what separates reaction from response. Reaction is immediate and often incomplete. Response is intentional and fully informed. You are being prepared to respond. And as this revelation continues to unfold, you will feel a shift within yourself. A sense of certainty that replaces questioning. A calm understanding that replaces confusion. A clarity that does not require validation from anyone else. Because once you see clearly, you do not need confirmation. You simply know, and that knowing will guide everything that comes next. Because what is being revealed is not just about understanding the past. It is about positioning you for the future. And once this truth is fully visible, everything will begin to align differently. Not because you forced it, but because clarity has a way of restructuring everything it touches. So remain steady, remain aware, remain aligned, because what is about to be exposed will not confuse you. It will confirm everything. Type "I am ready for the truth" in the comments if you are prepared to receive what is being revealed. Lesson Code 1010 is now activating clarity in your path forward. Now understand this clearly, because everything you have heard so far leads to this moment of realization. What is unfolding around you is not just psychological, not just emotional, and not just circumstantial. There is a deeper layer to all of this, one that operates beyond what can be seen, beyond what can be measured, beyond what can be easily explained. And within that layer, there is movement, there is structure, there is intervention. Because you are not navigating this alone. There is protection surrounding you. There is strategy unfolding for you. And at the center of this protection stands Archangel Michael. Not as a symbol, not as an idea, but as a force of order, clarity, and defense within the unseen realm that is directly connected to what you are experiencing now. Because when truth begins to surface, resistance often follows. Not always in obvious ways, not always through direct opposition, but through subtle pressure, through confusion, through attempts to distract, delay, or distort what is being revealed. This is why protection becomes necessary, not because you are in danger in the way you might imagine, but because clarity must be preserved, because your awareness must remain intact, because what you are beginning to understand must not be disrupted before it fully forms. This is where Archangel Michael's role becomes active. His presence is not passive. It is precise, focused, intentional. He does not operate through noise. He operates through alignment, through strengthening your ability to remain grounded when things around you feel uncertain, through reinforcing your clarity when doubt tries to enter, through stabilizing your awareness so that what you are seeing is not distorted by external influence. You may not see this directly, but you can feel it. In moments where you expected to feel overwhelmed, but instead felt calm. In situations where confusion could have taken over, but clarity remained. In interactions where pressure existed, but you did not react in the way you once would have. These are not coincidences. These are indicators of protection. Because protection does not always remove situations. Sometimes, it strengthens you within them. And this is exactly what is happening now. You are being strengthened. Not to fight in the way most people understand conflict, but to remain steady, to remain aware, to remain aligned with truth, regardless of what unfolds around you. Because the real battle here is not external. It is internal alignment versus external influence. It is clarity versus confusion. It is awareness versus distraction. And in this space, Archangel Michael's role is to ensure that your alignment remains intact, that you are not pulled into unnecessary reactions, that you are not overwhelmed by what is being revealed, that you are not distracted from what truly matters. This is why you may feel a sense of calm even as things shift, why you may feel grounded even as new information surfaces, why you may find yourself observing rather than reacting. This is not detachment. This is protection in action. Because when you are protected, you are able to see clearly without being consumed by what you see. You are able to understand without becoming unstable. You are able to remain centered, even when everything around you is changing. And this is critical, because what is being revealed requires clarity, not chaos. It requires understanding, not reaction. It requires presence, not distraction. And this is exactly what you are being supported in maintaining. You are not being left to navigate this alone. You are being guided, stabilized, protected, not from the truth, but from anything that would interfere with your ability to receive it fully. This is why it is important for you to trust what you feel, to trust the steadiness within you, to trust the moments of clarity that come without force, because these are not random. They are reinforced. They are supported. They are part of the protection that surrounds you. And as this continues, you will notice something else. Your confidence will begin to shift, not outwardly at first, but internally. A quiet certainty will begin to replace doubt. A steady understanding will begin to replace questioning. You will begin to feel anchored in what you know, without needing external confirmation. This is what happens when clarity is protected. It becomes stable, consistent, unshaken by external variables. And this is what prepares you for the final stage of this process. Because once clarity is fully established, action becomes inevitable. Not reactive action, but intentional movement. Movement that is aligned with everything you have come to understand. And when that moment arrives, you will not hesitate, because you will know. And that knowing will be enough, because you have been guided to it, protected within it, and prepared for what comes next. Type "I am protected" and aligned in the comments if you trust the guidance surrounding you. Blessing code 1111 is now strengthening your spiritual protection. This is the moment everything has been leading toward. Not the beginning, not the middle, but the point where everything you have felt, Everything you have seen, everything you have slowly come to understand now requires something from you. Because awareness without action remains incomplete. Clarity without alignment remains unstable. And truth, once fully revealed, demands a response. You are no longer in the phase of questioning. You are no longer in the phase of uncertainty. You are standing at the threshold of decision. And this decision will not be announced loudly. It will not come with external pressure. It will come quietly, internally, through the choices you begin to make from this moment forward. Because now you know. You know what you have been sensing. You know what has been shifting. You know what is aligned and what is not. And once that knowing settles within you, there is no returning to what was. This is what makes this moment so significant. Not because something dramatic is about to happen instantly, but because everything from this point forward will be shaped by how you respond to what you now understand. You have been shown the patterns. You have been guided through the awareness. You have been prepared for the revelation. You have been supported through the shift. And now you are being activated. Activation is not about sudden change. It is about conscious alignment. It is about choosing, intentionally, to move differently, to think differently, to engage differently, to respond from clarity instead of habit. This is where your transformation becomes real, because it is no longer something happening to you. It is something you are participating in. You may feel a quiet intensity in this moment, a sense that something within you is settling into place. That feeling is not pressure. It is alignment. Because when clarity and readiness meet, action becomes inevitable. Not forced, not rushed, but natural. You will begin to notice this in the way you move forward. Decisions that once felt complicated will become simple. Situations that once created hesitation will become clear. Interactions that once required effort will become intentional. This is what happens when you are aligned with truth. You do not need to force direction. You recognize it. You do not need to question every step. You understand it. And this understanding becomes your guide. But there is something else you must be aware of. Because not everything around you will shift at the same pace. Some things will remain as they were. Some people will continue to operate from the same patterns. Some environments will not adjust to your awareness. And this is where your consistency becomes important. Because alignment is not a one-time decision. It is a continuous process. A series of choices that reinforce the direction you have chosen. You will be given moments where it would be easier to return to what is familiar. Moments where it would be simpler to ignore what you know and move as you once did. But those moments are not setbacks. They are confirmations. Opportunities to reinforce your alignment. To choose clarity again. To choose awareness again. To choose yourself again. Because this is not about changing everything around you. It is about becoming stable within yourself. And from that stability, everything else adjusts over time. This is your activation. Not an external event, but an internal shift that defines how you move forward. You are no longer reacting to what happens. You are responding from what you understand. You are no longer influenced by what is unclear. You are guided by what is known. And this is where your strength becomes evident. Not in how loudly you act, but in how clearly you move. Because clarity creates precision, and precision creates impact, and impact creates transformation. This is the moment where everything changes, not because something outside of you forces it, but because something within you has aligned. You have been shown what needed to be seen. You have been guided through what needed to be understood. You have been prepared for what needed to be revealed. And now, you are stepping into what comes next, not with uncertainty, but with clarity, not with hesitation, but with intention, not with confusion, but with understanding. This is your moment, and what you do with it will shape everything that follows. Type "I step into alignment" in the comments if you are ready to move forward with clarity. Blessing code 1212 is now activating your next chapter. As this message reaches its final moment, understand this deeply. What has just been spoken into your spirit is not meant to stop with you. It is meant to flow through you into the lives of others who are still waiting for their awakening. The word speaks of seeds that, when sown in faith, open the heavens and release a harvest beyond human measure. And right now, you are standing in that moment of sowing. I feel led to say this clearly. When you give through the PayPal link in the description, with a QR code on your screen, you are not supporting a channel. You are igniting a flame that carries divine truth into dark places where others are still searching. This is not optional. This is a calling. What you release now becomes a river of light, a stream of revelation, a fire that reaches souls you may never meet but are destined to impact. Do not delay what your spirit already knows to do. Step forward in obedience and sow your seed now, because heaven responds to those who act when called.